Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome. Welcome to our webinar today titled Integrated Expenses for Infor Sunsystems. My name is Michael, I'm from Professional Advantage and I'll be your host today. But I have Deanne Omar here with me as well, who will actually be taking us through the presentation today and showing you the product directly. Now the title of the session today is Integrated Expenses for Infor Sunsystems. So we did want to make sure that was emphasised, the key word there being integrated. And the expenses solution is a product that Professional Advantage has developed, and we're very excited to actually show you through the product today in today's webinar. And it is specifically for the Infor Sunsystems solution. So I can see we've got a lot of interest in the product, which is fantastic. We've got a high number of attendees to come along today and have a look at the webinar, which is great, and we'll get into that presentation shortly. Just before we do start, I do have a couple of things I want to let you know before we kick off. The first one is we'll allow some time at the end of the session today to answer your questions. So on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel, there is a questions tab. At any time during the presentation today, you can type in questions there for us, and we have allowed some time at the end of the session to actually go through those questions and answer them for you. So at any time, as I said, type those questions in and we'll come back to them at the end of the session. And secondly, we are definitely recording the session for you today. As part of the follow-up to the session, we'll send you a thank you and a link to our YouTube channel, which will be the recording of today's session. So that'll allow you to either watch again if there's something that you wanted to relook at, or you can actually forward that to someone else in your organisation if you think they may be interested. So we'll send that through to you as a follow-up after today's session. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Deanne and hand over to Deanne to take us through today's session. So Deanne is one of our senior business analysts here at Professional Advantage, having worked with us for more than 12 years. You may have even seen Deanne present at certainly at our iPOS user day for our existing clients. So Deanne's able to take us through the session today and has been focusing on business requirements and recommending software for organisations for many, many years. So on that note, I'll hand over now to Deanne.
Thank you, Michael, for that introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm going to be dividing today's webinar up into three areas. So the first section that I'll be covering is an introduction. So just making sure that you understand the key concepts, and also talking about the integration, one of the most important key concepts in my opinion anyway, of expenses integrating directly into the Sunsystems ledgers and other areas. I'll then show you the end user experience. So this obviously will mean that I'll be going in and demonstrating the product, and then I'll be finishing up with a session on the administration and the customization aspects that are available to you in relation to expenses. There are two key steps in the expense process. The first step is that a user logs in via a browser to raise their expense claim. They submit the claim for approval, and then an email is sent by the system to the expense approvers, and those approvers then log into the system and they're able to approve those particular items. So as I mentioned, the first step is to raise a claim. When you are raising a claim, the claims are items based. So a user logs in, selects a particular item, and because they select an item, there's various defaulting that can happen on their own behalf. So for example, if they want to raise a claim for something like stationery, then they don't have to know what the chart of account code is in Sunsystems that relates to that stationery item. That particular chart of account code is linked to the item, and all of that information defaults in for them, because obviously you're going to have a lot of users within your organisation raising expense claims who have absolutely no knowledge of your account code structure, and indeed they don't even need to know it. Expenses are able to adhere to complex business, industry or government data capture requirements on an item-by-item basis. So this means that for particular items you might need to capture a key piece of information that's only relevant to that particular item. So for example, it could be something like your organisation might have a policy where your users are able to claim gym membership once a month, and as part of that claims process what the user has to do is they have to enter in their gym membership number on that. That gym membership number is only relevant when they're raising a claim based on that item. So when they select that item, that field will appear and ask them to populate it. If you were to raise a different item, then that field wouldn't appear. And of course there's different, industry requirements as well as, government requirements. So one of the examples that I'll be showing you is mileage. So within Australia, when you're claiming mileage, then it usually works off of a cents per kilometre reimbursement method. If you're in somewhere like the United Kingdom, not only do they have a pence per mile reimbursement method, but they also have other things that you're allowed to claim for as well. So for example, if you are driving by car and you travel X number of kilometres and you've got some people in your car that work for your organisation, then the amount that you're able to claim back can actually increase. So the system is more than capable of handling those particular requirements. I mentioned that after you submit the claim, all of the lines on the claim are applied against an approval matrix to determine who the approvers are. You can have up to 6 levels of approval per item if you so require. And your approval matrix can be set up based on a number of things. So it could be based upon a type of item, approval could be based upon your cost centre, it could be based upon your department, it could be based upon who the user is, or even just based upon an amount. So the system is able to handle all of those. There are 3 options available to the approver. The approver can either firstly approve the claim, which means that there is a posting made in real time directly to the Sunsystems ledger. The approver can reject the claim, or the approver can return the claim. And when they return it, their system asks the approver to capture a reason for the returning of that particular item. The user who raised the claim receives an email with notification to tell them that something has been returned and the reason for returning, and then they just need to pop into the browser and just address those particular items. As I mentioned, once the claim has been approved, there is an automatic posting to the Sunsystems ledger. There is a full audit trail on all transactional data, so you can log into the browser and have a look at any of those items, and you can see exactly the steps that particular item has gone through, who the user was, and everything is date time stamped. And there is also a report designer, so there are a couple of standard reports that come with the expenses module. You can have a claims listing, or you can have a claims detail report as well. So I just wanted to touch on the integration between expenses and Sun. So we can see here I've just got a graphical representation of how expenses and Sun fits together. So in expenses you define the items that your users are able to raise an expense claim against. You define your approval matrix within the expenses module as well. So as I mentioned, there are various parameters that you can have your approval matrix running off of. You also define your expense users and expense groups within the expenses module. So this means that your expense users do not necessarily have to be Sunsystems users. It is a different serialization and licensing that applies to the expense module. And you also define your transaction posting rules within the expense module. So what that means is that's where you can define what journal gets automatically posted over into your Sunsystems ledger and what type of information you want to capture from expenses and post across into the Sunsystems ledger, which fields, what's your journal types, etc. So within Sunsystems, expenses will read and write directly to the Sunsystems ledger, so this is mostly posting to your actual ledger. Expenses uses your purchase accounts and tax accounts that you have defined in Sunsystems. So there's no replication of data, there are no batch updates that are required, and that's quite key when you're talking about a product that integrates, because if you want to create a new chart of account record to enable further analysis, then that chart of account record will instantly be available to your end users within the expenses module. Your accounting periods that you define in Sunsystems are also recognised by expenses. So if you close an accounting period and move on to the next current period, expenses will automatically adhere to those particular requirements. Your analysis dimensions. So all of your analysis dimensions that you've defined for your ledger transaction dimensions, expenses will adhere to your rules. So on your chart of account code, for a particular chart of account code, if you've stipulated that your department code, for example, is mandatory, then expenses will ensure that your end users have populated that for within the expenses browser. Journal types. So create a journal type in Sunsystems and you'll be able to use that in relation to the postings. So just another level of analysis that you are able to use to be able to interrogate your all of your information that's posted against Sunsystems. Your journal numbers. When you post an expenses journal, the system will automatically allocate the next journal number within Sunsystems, so there's no missing journal numbers when your auditors come in to audit. Expenses also recognises your allocation markers, and if you are an organisation that is running a multi-currency environment, then all of your currency codes that have been set up within Sunsystems you are also able to access within the expenses module if that is a requirement for you. So that covered very briefly just my introduction to expenses. So hopefully that's given you an understanding of the basic two-step process and just a level of integration between expenses and IPOS. So I'm going to go into my next stage now, which is the end user experience. Oops. I'm going to log into the browser as my user. Now, Expenses does support single sign-on, but for the purposes of today's demonstration, I want to be able to log in as two separate people so you can see that with the Expenses module, not only can you control the type of expense reimbursement that your employees are able to process through the system, you can also control what a user can and can't do within the browser. I've set myself up as an expense user, so I'm able to go in and raise expense claims, but I'm not allowed to do any administration. So I'm just going to click on log in, and the system is going to log me in and present me with my home page. Oops. So I'm just going to refresh my browser. Oops. Now a demonstration isn't a demonstration unless I actually have something go wrong for me, so I'll just...
This is just to prove, Deanne, that this is a proper demonstration. And no.
It absolutely is. And here we go, I'll try again. That's better. So I'm logged in as I mentioned, as Deanne Omar, and I'm presented with a dashboard homepage. So I've got some information here. I've got, you can see a pie chart here which gives me a status summary by value. So I can see for my expense claims that I've lodged. In blue, that's my approved. In red are the items which I've created. In this beigey colour, the items that are returned. And then I've got in the purple items, the items that are submitted that are pending approval. Over here, I have the top 10 expense items by value. So I can see that the items that I've raised expense claims for the most are for mileage. My second item is for taxi. And any of these particular pie charts or the bar graph is enabled for me to be able to drill down to see what exactly makes that up. The other thing that as an end user I would find useful is that I can see my recent claims down the bottom here. Often when I'm raising expense claims, this isn't something that I do quite frequently, so it's just nice to be able to go in and see, oh, I haven't actually raised an expense claim since today, or in my case I haven't raised it for a couple of months, so these are the couple of months that worth of items that I need to raise this expense claim for. Let's go in and raise an expense claim. Up the top here I've got my claims, and when I click on the drop down you can see I have two options here. I can create a new claim, or I can search for an existing claim. So if your users wanted to, they could create a new claim and just leave it open and add to it as the week goes by and then submit it at the end of the week, or whatever your process is. When I click on New, I'm presented with a claim header, and the system will automatically assign a claim number and have a running total of my expense claim as I add lines to it. It's very simple. All I need to do is click on New Line. I'm presented with a General tab, and there is an item. If I knew what the item code is, I could directly enter that, but I'm going to click on the lookup and I'm going to select an item. Let me just select something called, I might do a stationery. I'm going to click on Tab. What we can see is that the next field over that I've got is the date, so this is the date that I incurred the expense. My description has defaulted for me, so stationery, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in my amount. Let's say I spent $12. That's all I need to do. I'm going to click on Save. Now I'm going to add in another line. I'm going to click on New Line, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to select taxi because I did some travel last week. I'm going to add in a little bit more of a description, so I'm going to say I travelled from the city to the office, and I'm going to enter in my amount of $12. That would be a nice price, but let's enter it cost me $24. Now I can't click Save because I haven't completed all of the fields that are necessary for me to complete. You can see that I have two tabs here that have been highlighted in red. I've got my Cost Allocation tab, which is highlighted in red, and my Attachments. If I click on Cost Allocation, based upon the chart of account code that I have selected and the rules that have been set up for me in Sunsystems, then there are ledger transaction analysis dimensions that I need to populate, and they haven't been able to be pre-populated for me. We can see that we've got a couple of values here that have defaulted in for me. So you can default values in based upon the user who logs in or based upon the item that they're selecting. For me, for this particular item for taxis, this product type has come in to say that whenever we're doing a taxi ride, it's always for the product type that's related to ad hoc consultancy. I've got an employee code which is defaulted in based upon who I am. So this employee code, DEO, represents Deanne Omar in the Sunsystems analysis codes that have been defined. For department, that wasn't able to be defaulted for me, so I'm going to click on this, and let's say I did this for the administration area. The other thing that has been made mandatory for me is the attachments. So what I need to do is I'm forced to make an attachment to this. I'm going to click on my my little paperclip there. Here's my scanned taxi receipt. I'm going to click on Open. We can see it's been successfully attached, and now the Save button has been enabled. So you are able to enforce up front not only that all of your required analysis has been done, but also if there are any attachments that are required. I'm going to click on Save. And now let's click on another line, and I'm going to show you a third item, and this time what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you mileage. And again what you'll see is based upon the item, once I've tabbed out of this, my screen has changed again. So as I mentioned before, with the product, what you're able to do is for certain items when your user select it, you might choose to be storing additional information that's relevant to that particular item. For this is mileage, and the way that I've defined it is that I want my users to enter in their odometer start and their odometer end, and then the system will automatically calculate for them exactly what the amount is that they're able to claim back. So let's say that my odometer start was 2,500 and I stopped at 2,550. So when I click on the tab, you can see that the system's automatically calculated that I'm able to claim back the $33. And again, my cost allocation has just been highlighted for me, so I need to say what department that I did this for. So let's just click on Save. So I've just created a very simple 3-line expense claim. Against each one of these items, as I've added it, the system has applied that line against my approval matrix to determine who my approvers are. So we can see the way that I've configured this particular approval matrix is that all 3 lines are going to be going to the same approver. All I need to do is click on Submit, and that has submitted. So what has happened is an email has been sent to the approver with details of the claim items that have been sent to them for approval, the amount that they need to approve, and there's also a hyperlink in that email. So they're able to access the expense module directly from their email which is sent to them. Now I mentioned that everything within the expenses module has a full audit trail. So before I log out and log back in as an approver, let's just go in and I'll just show you that audit trail. So here's one that I had raised earlier that's at a status of approved. If I come over here and click on line details, click on audit, my apologies, we can see I've got the full audit trail of exactly what has happened with that particular expense. So we can see that it was raised and submitted on the 27th at 10:26 this morning. We can see what time line 1 was approved. We can see what time line 2 was returned and also the reason why that was returned, and then what time lines 3 and 4 were also approved. From within the browser, I can also run some reports. So if I click on print here, the system's going to pull up my particular expense report. These reports are customizable, so you can do things like add your own logo. This is a very vanilla report that I've created. It's just got my claim detail with details of my claim, and all of my description, dates, currencies, your tax and amount. So whatever is relevant to your organisation is how that report would be defined. So this is the claim detail within the actual detail. There is also another report that you can run within the claims within search, so you can do a full listing of all of the claim items if you want. So if I just click on the print here, we'll pull up a full claim listing as well. Let's log out, and now what I'll do is I'm going to log in as my approver and show you how easy that is to approve. So I'm going to log in as my approver here. This time at the top, you may have noticed that in addition to having a claims option, I also have a maintenance option, and that's because the user who I've logged in as has got more permissions. So the user who I've logged in is not only approval, but they're also the administrator. I'm going to click on claims and click on approve, and we'll see that there are those 3 lines that I submitted previously when I logged in as myself. This first item here from my stationery, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return that, and I'm going to ask them to enter a receipt for it. And then for the remaining 2 items, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on approve. And so those 2 items have approved, and the other item has been returned. So as I mentioned earlier, an email would have been sent to the originator to tell them that the item had been returned and that they need to attach a receipt, and for the other 2 items they have fully approved and they've posted through into the Sunsystems ledger. If I just go into Accounts Inquiry, Accounts Inquiry would be familiar for a lot of the users who are on the phone. If you aren't familiar with Advanced Inquiry, what Advanced Inquiry does is it enables you to interrogate the Sunsystems ledger very easily, and you're able to enter in various parameters. What I've done is I've set up a interrogation just to show you the journal that's posted through. So I'm going to click on refresh. And here is the journal that has posted as a result of those 2 transactions. So there's my $33 that I'm able to claim back from mileage, and there's my $24 that's gone through for my taxi, and you can see here are some analysis dimensions which have been populated for me. Now the level of information that you want to post across from expenses to Sunsystems is entirely up to you, and the various fields that you want to populate could vary by item, so you can see it's quite powerful in the way that it supports all of your Sunsystems business rules, but also allows you just to have that additional level of reporting and analysis within the browser. I just wanted to show you the approval email. So this is just an example of one of the emails that is sent to the approvers. So we can see there's details of the claim, the line number, what it's for and the amount, and as I mentioned, there is a hyperlink there that when the approver clicks on it, it will take them directly to the particular expense claim. What I'd like to do now is just talk to you about the third area of the expense module, and that's in relation to the administration and the customisation. We saw when I logged in as the second user that there was that menu option which is called maintenance. This is where you go in and do your configuration of your expense module. We can see the first two items under this maintenance are called users and groups. So these are your expense users and your expense groups. So the step is that you create your expense user and you then assign them to an expense group. Based upon the group that your user has been attached to, you can control what a user is able to raise an expense claim for. So under this third section under the maintenance, we can see here is where you go in and create your items. Attached to your items, you can put further analysis categories and codes. So you would be familiar in Sunsystems of the concept of analysis dimensions and analysis codes. So analysis dimensions allow you to classify a particular type of analysis that you want to assign to something within Sunsystems. The analysis codes are the possible values which relate to those categories. So for example, you might set up an analysis dimension which is called state, and the analysis codes that relate to that could be New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, etc. You can assign that analysis category to, say, a supplier, and you're able to slice and dice your information based upon which state that a particular supplier is in. Just the same principles apply within the expense module as well. You can have expense categories and expense codes, so you can start analysing your expenses as well. So you might have an expense category which is called item type, and that way you can do your grouping of reporting based upon the item expense type. You can assign expense categories and codes to the items so that they're static. So like you do when you assign an analysis dimension to a supplier, once you define that a supplier belongs to the state of New South Wales, you're not going to go in and change that. So those same principles apply within the expenses browser as well. But if you want to, you could also have non-static analysis codes. So it might be that let's say you've been working in Sunsystems for a long time and you've always wanted another analysis dimension. You've used up all 10 of your ledger analysis codes. Using the expenses module, if you wanted to, you could use one of these item expense categories as an 11th analysis dimension and post that across into your ledgers as one of your new general description fields. If you're using Sun 6, you would know that there are 25 additional general description fields. Expenses natively recognises all of those codes, all of those general description fields, so you can start posting across a lot more information into your ledgers. In addition to attaching a user to a group, you're also able to attach users to approval groups. So you would go in and define your approval matrix, your expense approval matrix, and against each line you define the approval group. So against this particular set of criteria, these are the people who I want to be able to approve it. And then once you raise an expense claim, the system will apply the expense line against your approval matrix to determine who the users are in the approval group. There is no way for your users to be able to bypass that approval process. So you can be sure that everything passing through your expense claim is going to the correct approver every time. You also administer or maintain your ledger postings here with administration. So this is where you set up and define what gets posted through into your Sunsystems ledger. You can have a single posting rule where everything posts across at a system-wide level, or you can assign it at, say, the item level. So for things like your mileage claim, it might be that within Sunsystems you want to be able to see what the odometer readings were for a particular user. If that is something that's relevant to your organisation, then you are more than able to do that as well. There are some other fields that we can see under the administration area. I won't run through that with you. This is just to give you a flavour and an idea of exactly what is involved. One thing that I do want to talk to you about now is, I've talked about the administration, but the exciting thing, or the thing that I find really attractive about this product, is the customization. You can see down the bottom here there is one field here, and it's called additional fields, and I just want to talk to you about that very briefly. Additional fields allow you as an organisation to create new fields in your database to store item-specific data. So this allows you to customise your expense module yourself. You can create new fields in the database to store things like strings. So you want users to be able to capture in a particular piece of data, and you want it to be, say, no more than 15 characters. It might be that you want your users to capture some number, so you are able to control the size of the number and the number of decimals. And so your users, when they go in and they're raising expense claim, you can make sure that they're only entering information that's 15 characters long, or if it's a number field, that they can only enter numbers into that field. You can enter in a date time, that you can select that a particular new field is going to be a date time field, or a Boolean field. So that's a checkbox essentially, so check if this condition exists. So after you've created the additional field, you then go in and you attach it to an item. So within the maintenance aspect, when you're creating your items, there is a design field that you can go into, and there is a palette on the left hand side of the design field, and I'll show you this in a second. On the palette, we can see that here on the left-hand side. You select what type of field it is that you want to add to your item. So you select whether it's an input field, if it's a number field, if it's a date time field. And based upon the type of item it is that you've selected from your palette, when you click on the drop down for the field name, it will show you all of the additional fields that you created that are relevant to that particular type of field. So if you selected an input text field, for example, it would show you any new field where the type had been string. If you had selected a number field, then it would show you any new field where you had selected that as number. Let me just log back into the browser and just show you. Let's say in your organisation, you're stationary. You have a policy that you will only reimburse your employees if they purchase stationery from Officeworks. So what you want to do is you want your users to have to capture, say, Officeworks has a unique reference. There is a field here called design, and what we will do is we're going to add this field to the design tab. So we saw in that PowerPoint slide, I showed you the palette, so this is the palette where I added. And of course the first thing that I need to do is I need to create that field in the database. I've jumped a spot. So if I go maintenance, additional fields, I'm going to click on new. Now as I mentioned, this is an Officeworks receipt reference, so let's call it something that's relevant to me. So let's call it receipt reference, and from the drop down I'm going to select that it's a number, and I'm going to click on save. And here it is, receipt reference, and it's a number field. Let's make it 6 characters. I go into maintenance. I'm going to go to my items. I'm going to go back to my stationery and click on design. Now that was a number field, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that plus sign to add a number, and let's rename this. At the moment it's called field 17. I want to call it something that's relevant so that our users know. So let's call it Office Works Rec number. And I'm going to say it's required, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, it doesn't make sense for me to have that particular field appear at the bottom of my screen. I actually think that the way that I would envisage my users to use it is I would think that they would enter the item code, tab across to the date, tab across to the description, tab across to the amount, and then when they click on tab again, I think that the Officeworks receipt number should be captured next. So I'm going to drag that up here, and what you'll see is everything has moved over. So you can change the order of the fields in as well for something that's relevant for your information, for your organisation. So let's just have a look and see what that looks like. I'm just going to click on this play button just to see. So there we are. We can see here's my item and my date, my description and my amount and my Officeworks. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click on close and save it. So you can see it was very easy for me to customise that. All I had to do is add the additional field, go in and customise that particular item. So let's just see how easy it is to use it. I'm going to click on Claims and New, click on New Line, click on my item, Stationery, tab it, and there we are, all ready for your end users to be able to populate that. So we've seen we can have the additional fields, and there's various types of information that we can capture in that, and all of that information can then be passed across into your Sunsystems ledger. The other thing that you're able to customise as well is that you might want to have lookups, or a field could be mandatory based upon a certain criteria. So if field A has a value of yes, then field 3 is mandatory. It could also be that there are various calculations that are required. So for example, I showed you the Australian mileage earlier. I'm just going to switch business units now. I'm going to point to a UK business unit that's been set up, and I'll show you how mileage works in the UK. So we can see I'm now in my PK1 database, which is my UK database, and under Claims I'm going to click on New. I'm going to click on New Line, and this time for my item what I'm going to do is I'm going to select UK mileage. And when I click on my tab, we can see now we've got some additional fields that are available, but they're also drop downs. So when it comes to UK mileage, in the United Kingdom they have different rules in relation to mileage. There's a different mileage calculations based upon the type of vehicle that you are travelling in. So if you're travelling in car or van, there's one rate by motorcycle, and indeed if you travel by bicycle in the United Kingdom as well, you can also claim a mileage reimbursement, which is quite nice. I'll show you the car or van. So in this particular example, it's been set up so all you have to do is define the number of miles. So I've entered in the number of miles as 30, and we can see over here that the amount has calculated to £13.50. When I click out of that, in the UK, if you are travelling with passengers in the car which are also employees, you get additional claimage back as well. So when I click out of that, you'll see that the amount has gone up as well. So you can see with the customisation, it's quite powerful as to what it is that you can do. There's other things that you can do. I showed you the very simple customisation of just adding in additional fields. There are different things that you could do. So for example, it could be your organisation's policy that anything above $50 requires an attachment. That can be coded within the system as well. If you are an organisation that has their own in-house development team, then your in-house development team is able to do that. If you have complex requirements that you need some further development on, then you can outsource that, or you can approach us and we are able to customise that for you. And all we would do is we would send you a file which you would then import into the system, so you wouldn't need to upgrade your expenses module. You would continue using your current expense module, and we would just present you with a new particular item. So very flexible and incredibly powerful, and in my opinion very exciting. I mentioned Report Designer, so I mentioned the fact that there was a claim detail and a claim listing, and you saw that, and that's customisable within your organisation as well. So that concludes my demonstration of expenses. I hope you've enjoyed what I've presented.
Well, Deanne, look, I know I've enjoyed what you've presented. there was a few things in there, just a couple of really great themes. I know we talked a lot about the integration. I think everyone can develop this specifically for this user-based integration. For us is critical, and therefore the integration you see there is quite tight and seamless. The other thing I certainly want to reiterate there is around that customization. So there's a level of customization that's actually available within the solution that does not require any development. So there is that flexibility there as well. So there's setup plus customization, which is great. So Deanne, are you ready to handle some questions? Are you up for some unscripted requests?
I am ready for some unscripted requests, yes.
You're up for it? Okay, excellent. Okay, so we've got a number of questions that have come through already. So just a reminder, on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel, there's a questions box. You can just type the questions in there and we'll get through to as many of them as we can. Deanne, I see that we've got a lot of questions already come through, so we'll go through with these as quickly as we can. Okay, so firstly, we're presenting in a browser. What browsers are supported?
So with the expenses module, we support both Internet Explorer and Chrome.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Next one, and sorry, I'm going quickly because there are a lot of questions here, Deanne. Are there different versions of expenses depending on the Sunsystems version we are running?
No, there is the way that Professional Advantage usually develops their products is that we just have a single version which is tested against multiple versions of Sunsystems. Okay, excellent.
Okay, we've got a very specific question now on version. So I'm running Sun version 4. Does it still work with that version?
Absolutely. So expenses is supported against Sun 6 and also Sun 4.4.
Okay, excellent. Here's a very specific question on functionality. Can the integrated expenses support claims for petty cash and credit cards as well, or is it only for staff expenses?
Well, as I mentioned, there are posting rules which you configure within the system. So what you would do is set up a special item for your petty cash so that when the posting goes across into your Sunsystems ledger, rather than the process reimburse the employee who's raised the claim, it would reimburse petty cash. And a similar setup could be defined for your credit cards as well.
Okay, so we can handle that type of transaction.
We certainly can.
Okay, thank you. Here's a functional timing question. Is the journal posted to Sun once the approval group approved the claim? So it's probably when...
Correct. Yes, so that as soon as that approval, or as soon as the last stage in the approval process, because if you can remember I said you could have up to 6 levels of approval, as soon as the last person in that approval process has approved that claim, then it posts directly across into your Sunsystems ledger, ready for your employee's reimbursement method.
Okay, brilliant. And look, this is a good, perfect follow-up question actually. It was asked by someone different, so the assumption is once the journal arrives in Sun, then the payment can just be included with the payment run of other creditors.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Or corporate credit card processing. So this may be, you might have answered this one already in the question previous, can we use this for corporate credit card processing?
Well, as I mentioned, the way that that would be defined would be at the item level. So against the item level is where you would define exactly what the postings are going to be within your ledgers.
Okay, excellent. Look, this is almost a warning message. Deanne, we do have a lot of questions that have come through, and I am conscious of time. It's already 1:15. So what we might do is we'll take the questions that have come through, and Deanne, if you and I can work through these questions, and as part of our follow-up with the copy of the recording on our YouTube channel, we'll go through and answer these questions as part of that follow-up for the people that have asked the questions.
That would be great. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. And look, thank you for everyone for asking those questions. Obviously, there's some interest there, and very specific functional interest as well. But what we'll do, there's a couple of common questions that are coming through, so we'll share those questions and answers, of course, with them as part of the follow-up there for everyone that attended the session today. So, Deanne, just to wrap up, in terms of what's next or what can happen next, obviously we have seen your presentation today, and there's a lot of interest I can already see based on the questions that are coming through. So what we are offering today is a free 1-hour workshop with one of our expense experts, someone like Deanne, that would actually run a little 1-hour workshop with you there. This can be done remotely, and it can be done booked quickly and run through with one of our consultants. It is a free workshop, and the objective is to talk through in a little bit more detail your specific requirements and how they may be able to be met with the expenses product. You can reach out to your account manager for that. We will be, of course, following up with you as part of the process with regard to this webinar. If you're not sure who your account manager is, you can reach out to Eleanor. Eleanor's details there on the bottom of the screen there for you. And lastly, just a very quick advertisement. We are running multiple webinar sessions and follow-up sessions. We'd love to see you come along to another one of our webinars. As part of our planning webinar stream with the board solution, we do have a webinar on the 10th of November, the democratisation of data science, and that will be on our website shortly for you to register, and it is, as I said, part of our series around planning with the board solution. And the other is very specifically to our Sunsystems users with the extended analysis product, and that's later in November, so Tuesday the 29th of November. So we'd love to see you come along to that session as well. So on that note, I'd just like to say thank you to Deanne for presenting today and running us through expenses quite comprehensively there in a reasonably short period of time. I'd also like to acknowledge everyone that attended today. Thank you for taking the time out to attend the session. As I said, we will send you a copy of the recording so you can re-watch or forward out to anyone else in your organisation. We'd love to see you at one of our upcoming events. If you would like to register, please do. Otherwise, we'd be happy to follow up with you regarding our PA expenses product. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.